Baker hits it straight to Clive Wilson. Clive Wilson, can he use his pace here? Wilson up against Fuchs. He's turned in the wrong way. Can he get the cross in? There it is. He scored! It's Coady who scored! John Coady heads Chelsea in front with just 8 minutes left to play. It's Chelsea 2, Barnsley 1.
Chelsea! Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, I am pleased to welcome our guest on the show today. He made 19 appearances for the club, scoring 3 goals, and he played alongside the likes of Steve Clarke, Pat Nevin and Kerry Dixon. Here is John Coady. John, welcome to the show. Bit of a mad one pre-recording. We'll probably talk about it during the show, but either way, how are you?
I'm very well, Keith. Thanks very much, and thanks for having me on the show.
Pleasure is all mine. Hopefully we'll have no issues my end with the laptop or any issues with any voices to come on halfway through. I'd like to start the interview, if I can, John, by asking sort of how I started with my other interviews is in terms of who or what influenced you to become a professional footballer in the first place?
Oh, wow. I suppose, like a lot of people, it was just kind of a lot of it down to luck and being in the right place at the right time to become a professional. But again, started off as usual playing on the streets with my buddies when I was a very young kid, and just worked my way up through schoolboy football and then into kind of a medium league. And then eventually a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine who was a member at Shamrock Rovers, said, right, John, we're going to bring you up for a trial. Went for a trial. Everything went perfectly. And started from there, basically.
And who would you say was your idols growing up as a kid?
Lots of home-based players here, Shamrock Rovers players. My favourite player in the world is a guy called Frank O'Neill. He came back from Arsenal, I think, to Shamrock Rovers in the 60s. When we were growing up, we used to go to see him. He was an outside right, if people know what that is anymore. He was absolutely sensational. Again, Mick Leach was the centre forward, always drawn to the strikers, of course. So, yeah, pretty much they were my two at the time. Again, and I had an inkling for Liverpool at the time when I was a kid, when I was a young boy. So, yeah, a few of those guys back in the late 60s would have been idols of mine. Peter Thompson particularly played in my position, outside left, whom I loved. So, yeah.
And was you able to go and see Shamrock Rovers on a
permanent basis? Absolutely.
Yeah?
Every second Sunday, marching up to see them. They played on Sunday afternoons. Fantastic times. Full houses. Back in the 60s, there was no football on TV here in Ireland, so everybody just, if you wanted to see live football, get up and support your local club. It was different to these days.
Most definitely. I want to fast forward to 1986, 1987.
Yeah.
You signed for Chelsea from Shamrock Rovers for around about £25,000. How did this move come about for you?
Well, again, you only hear about it afterwards. You don't know when it's happening at the time. Well, I didn't anyway. So, what I heard later on was that the scout in Dublin, the Chelsea scout in Dublin, just kept sending reports and paper clippings. I've been going through a particularly good time, a good phase of my season at that time. So he kept bombarding the club. He said, definitely come and have a look at this guy. Come and have a look at this guy. That's the story I got. So eventually, I think John Hollands, the manager, succumbed and said, right, I better go over. And the game he chose to come and see wasn't a Shamrock Rovers match. It was an Olympic qualifier, because we, as part-time professionals, we were allowed to enter the Olympics qualifying phase. So we were playing the Hungarians in our home patch in Milltown, and I played left full that night. Had a decent game, and after that, I think the Rovers boss came down to me during the following week and said they want to sign him.
Because I believe as well, when I was doing my research on you, John, that you was working as a postman
Yeah,
while you was
that's right.
while you was playing for
Yeah,
Shamrock Rovers. That's correct,
yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, for sure.
And then when sort of this potential deal was going to happen, what was your initial thoughts on this? Was you thinking, much about the future, what you was going to do if you was to sign for Chelsea, or was there a lot of thought that went into
No,
doing
no,
this?
I think that was part of my problem, Keith, is that it happened so quickly. It's like the first I heard about was about kind of early to mid December, and I was gone before Christmas. I was living in digs in Rains Park, and so it was also sudden. You don't have time to think about, oh God, but what was this? One of my biggest issues was my girlfriend, who's now my wife. How do we organise that? And will we be able for a semi-long distance relationship if I'm living in London and she's here? So there was all these kind of things, and then of course the financial issue of living in London, which was at the time much more expensive than Dublin. So there was lots of things to consider, but again, hardly any time to sit down and have a proper think about it. So it happened really quickly. Before I knew it, I was in Stamford Bridge with meeting John Hollins and Ken Bates, the chairman, and boom, it was make your decision up there and then, and I did. So yeah, no thought hardly at all. It was just let's go.
What were your interactions like with Ken Bates?
Oh, I love Ken. I know it gets an awful press, but he was very good to me. I have to say, he looked after me. Like in any time there was a payment due, he was straight on the ball. It was the payments were made. So I can't say a bad thing about him. And I can only go. You can only judge people by the way they treat you. I'm sure other people have slightly worse things to say about Ken, but yeah, he was okay for me.
And you mentioned John Hollins, who was he was the coach for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Did he have a chat with you sort of once you signed about his plans for you, or even before you signed the deal? Did he sort of say what he had plans for you going forward?
Yeah, but in a very, very vague sense. It was like he says, "Yeah, we want you to play here initially," and then and I said, "Grant." So I thought it was going to be straight. I remember on your Boxing Day or St. Stephen's Day, we were due to play Tottenham at Stamford Bridge. And I thought, right, I'm just going straight in here now and we're going to start playing. And that would, for me, probably would have been the best thing that happened because I am a confidence kind of player. I need that to be involved. But anyhow, as it happened, it didn't happen until Easter. So I had 2 or 3 months getting through the whole playing for the Rezzies. And I suppose they didn't think I was ready. So look, their opinion is different. A player always thinks he should be in the team, Keith. That's the way players are. So, yeah, so I had to wait a while. But he did say, yeah, we bought you for left full. We're going to play you there. And then they played me in left midfield on my debut. So, yeah.
Well, your debut, you came on against Blackburn in the Full Members Cup.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't regard that as the debut.
Well, no, we'll talk about your first start. We'll talk about
right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's true. I did come on. Yeah.
And
the pitch I've quickly forgotten about, as you know, as you can see.
That's fine. It's completely understandable.
Yeah, that was a horrible match.
Do you recall, that moment when you was told by John Hollins that you would be at least on the bench against Blackburn and then being able to come on? What were your sort of emotions going through?
I was very, very excited, of course, about it. You're doing something. It's a dream and come true, a schoolboy dream come absolutely true, which very few people get to have in a lifetime. So that's the way I try to explain it to people, is that like my dream since I was a young boy was to play professional football, and for it to happen was just. And then at a club like Chelsea, again, huge club here in Ireland, Chelsea still are to this day, and it was hugely exciting. Yeah, brilliant.
Now your next appearance is what we'll definitely be talking about. A small matter of scoring your first goal for the club in a West London derby against Queen's Park Rangers. That's not a bad way to introduce yourself to the Chelsea faithful, is it?
No, what a day. What a day. No, it was just unbelievable. But even you were saying about explaining about the plan, my plan previous to joining Chelsea. I didn't even know I was going to be playing on the day. Like Holly just didn't tell me until almost Friday. He says, John, you're going to be start tomorrow. And I'm like, thanks. That's great. Give me a load of time to prepare. But anyway, it was brilliant. The only shit thing about that, Keith, was that the pitch. Do you remember the pitch at Loftus Road that used to be the plastic one?
That's right.
Oh my! Well, it was basically a concrete slab with a piece of green baize put over it. It was just like a snooker table. It was horrible. But the goal came along. I started well, and then the goal came along. They scored first, and then I think the previous one, the previous season, Chelsea got drubbed 5-0 at Loftus Road or something.
They got spanked
there was
before.
There was lots of nervousness around QPR taking the lead, but I was managed to score an equaliser, and we got out with a point. So it was a fantastic day. Yeah, I was high as a kite, as you can imagine.
And what did your teammates make of it? You know, again, new kid on the block. He scores against QPR. Did you get a lot of
I think they seem to be quite happy. I don't know. Never really asked about it, but it was fantastic. Afterwards, got lots of congratulations and whatever from the lads. So, I think they were happy enough.
And from there, you did have a good run in the side. You you're starting quite a few games, although the Chelsea results were quite inconsistent. But for you personally, was you happy that it took you a while to get into the side, but then you was in it?
Yeah.
You must have been pleased as punch to sort of have that consistent run in the team.
Absolutely, yeah, because that's there's no point in getting one match here and one match there. What you're looking for is consistency, and that's, as I say to you, that's the way my personality is. If I know that I'm going to be involved, which I always was with Holly, going to be involved in the training and the first team selections, and even on the bench. Just once I was involved, I didn't mind, but it was great. Got a good run. I got I think 5 matches on the trot. Whatever. I don't even look at the stats now, to be honest with you. But it was fantastic, and confidence was high. As you say, the results weren't always going our way, but I think we were winning more than we were losing at that time. So during that phase of the season, I mean, I know it wasn't a great season, but it was fantastic for me. It was just like living the dream.
And what would you say, just to kick it off in terms of your favourite position? Would you prefer staying at left back, or was you happy to be more of a left midfielder and bomb forward?
I think left midfield was more my thing. And once they signed Tony DeRigo for left back, and playing in front of him was an absolute dream. Oh, it was just fantastic. And I thought we connected quite well. We thought we had a good thing going on the left hand side again. Who knows? It could have been brilliant. But I thought, because I'm just an attack minded player. I think left side of midfield is probably my go-to position. Yeah.
What was Tony like to work with? And
he was a dream. He was
alongside.
An absolute gentleman. I don't know if you've had him on the podcast.
Yeah, we had him on the show last year. Yeah.
He's just we just hit it off really, really well. Once he arrived at the club, he was fantastic, and I got on really well with him. And just a joy to work with. And a superb footballer, like absolutely brilliant. England international, like pure class.
Now, the next season, it started off well for you. Your first appearance that season, you scored in a 3-0 win against Luton.
Yeah.
At this point, you've had a full pre-season now with Chelsea. You're still part of the first team setup.
Yeah.
What was your feelings sort of going into this particular season? Was it a case of starting more games and having a good run in the side and to progress yourself as a footballer? What were your overall ambitions?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Keith. Those 3 things were exactly my thought process going into that season. Start more games, hold on to your position, and try and get into a decent league position also. So, absolutely. Had a great pre-season. I remember it well. It was grand. who knows what happened. And then got the goal against Luton. We absolutely bashed them 3-0, I think, on the day, and then had a few games after that. But unfortunately, things started to go a bit wrong after that.
Well, I was going to say, we've had a few players from that particular season, from the 87-88 season. We've had a few players come on, and they've obviously talked about certain issues that were happening behind the scenes and issues that were obviously on the pitch with the lack of games being won. But you would appear, albeit from the bench on a few of them. Did you have any conversations between this period until when John Hollins left? Did you have any conversations with him about why you was sort of having sporadic appearances or appearances coming from the bench? Did you have any one-to-ones with him?
No, I didn't. I was just because I was last in, kind of thing. I think I was just like in the dark totally as to even what was going on behind the scenes, all the crap, for the better wonderful word, that came out later, all the stuff that was going on, and the problems within the team itself. Like, I did see problems in the team from the outside looking in. When I got detached from it, it's easier to see that, like, some of the stuff that was going on amongst the players didn't lead for a happy family. So, so no is the answer to your question. He didn't pull me aside and say, well, look, this is happening or that's happening. I absolutely, basically ignorant about what was going on, unfortunately.
Because at that time, Chelsea did have a lot of personality in that team.
Yeah.
And there was quite a few egos in that side. Let's sort of put it mildly. Did you think that perhaps that if there was somebody, with all due respect, in terms of a leader, that would have maybe sorted that out in the team, or do you think the team lacked that particular leader to sort the egos out and to put that to one side and concentrate?
I did. Yeah, I do remember saying at one time I thought there was too many cliques in the team. There was too many sections of different people who were friendly with other guys. So, but I couldn't become part of a clique because I wasn't that close to any one player. I was kind of outside on my own, so to speak. So again, that's why I was so ill-informed as to what was happening within the club or in the team that time. But you could see that's what I was talking about when I was outside. You could almost see, and I did say it at a team meeting, I could see the disintegration of the team, just becoming little sections rather than the communal.
Now, since your arrival at Chelsea, that we already established, Chelsea, you already mentioned Tony Dorigo, but they also brought in Clive Wilson as well.
Another fantastic player and a lovely man, yeah.
Did these signings for you present huge obstacles in you perhaps getting back into the side on a more permanent basis, or did you feel that you may have to either bide your time a little bit, or what kind of issues was there for you, knowing that, as you said, Dorigo was there and now Clive Wilson? Yeah.
No, absolutely. These guys were a threat to me. I knew from day one that they would be, but I decided that I'd just, as you say, bide my time, do your stuff in training, and then hope that something happens that whereby you get in the team. And it actually did happen at one stage where they moved Clive Wilson to centre midfield and they played me on the left and Tony played behind me. And that for me just worked. I thought it worked well, but again, it didn't work well enough times for it to be a success, obviously. So they were constantly changing, and eventually you could just see, Jesus, the relegation coming down the road, which was absolutely abysmal, yeah.
Because I believe there was even times when you actually went into central midfield as well. Am I right in saying?
I did play. It didn't happen many times, Keith. It was only a couple of times I played in there. Didn't do too badly, but obviously not good enough.
Now, talking of positions, this did actually flash up, and we did have Eddie on the show, funny enough, earlier this year.
Right.
31st
I know where you're going. Yeah.
31st of October 1987, you came on from the subs bench to play in goal
after
Eddie picked up his
That's right.
latest unfortunate injury. It was against Oxford United.
That's right.
You did manage to keep a clean sheet, though,
I
in the
did.
2-1 win. What was that like for you? That must have been different.
It was, it wasn't. Was it then? Yeah, it was very unusual for me at that time. Yeah, because well, the reason Holly said he was putting me on was because I'd played Gaelic football as a youngster all the way through school, so I at least would know how to catch a ball, whereas the rest of the lads had never played. So, and plus the fact that I was getting on, I didn't really care. I know it was a real novelty. It was a great novel happening event. And I got some ribbon afterwards in the bar. Yeah.
At that point, did you, again, obviously looking back now with hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, but obviously, that was obviously Eddie's last appearance.
That's right.
You've obviously had the issues, as you said before, about clicks in the squad.
Yeah.
You just sort of said it, that you was happy to come on anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
John Hollins lost his position as the Chelsea manager. Bobby Campbell came in. What was your sort of thoughts on this? Was you sort of pleased that John Hollins was relieved of his duties? Was there a little bit of issues in terms of players not happy that he left? And what was sort of your thoughts on the situation?
Well, from a personal point of view, I knew this was going to be a disaster for me. Absolute disaster. Couldn't have been a worse scenario, because he at least would have me involved kind of in everything. Like I'd be training with the lads, and maybe if I wasn't picked, I might travel as a 14th man. At least there's that involvement. But I could say once Bobby Campbell came in, my time at Chelsea was over. Like from almost the first week there, I knew I'm going to have to look for a new club. And that's for a footballer, that's the worst place in the world to be. It's actually the worst time I've ever had as possibly a human being, not just a footballer. It was the worst time I've ever had my entire life. He was I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he wasn't a nice man.
I'm guessing, based on that reaction, he had no plans for you. It was just a case of telling you that you need to find a new club, right?
I was training with the youth team.
Right.
Horrible.
It was that season, of course, that Chelsea did get relegated through the divisional playoff.
Yeah.
See, we've had other players come on. We've had fans come on the podcast as well and tell us their sort of moments, what happened in that particular game. Fans sort of trying to invade the pitch.
Yeah.
Again, it's the last time Chelsea got relegated. Hopefully, it'll be the last. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you was obviously on the sidelines watching. Did you feel at that point that you need for you as a footballer, and as you just said, as a human being, that you needed to get out of this environment?
I needed to get out.
Sort of stay in England or go back home to Ireland.
Again, I hadn't thought about it, but I was hoping to go home. I absolutely wanted to go back, I think, at that stage. I did get a couple of offers from smaller clubs in the UK, but none of them seemed as attractive as the one I eventually got, which was brilliant. But just even thinking about it now, Keith, it just makes me feel so sad and just so lonely. It was the loneliest place in the world I've ever been. Now, I'm a very kind of social animal. I like to be around people. I like talking to people. But you couldn't talk to anybody. There's nobody. I was just so alone. It was ridiculous.
Does this include your teammates as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They had their own problems. Like everybody has their own issues. And when the shit hits the fan, Keith, you want to see everybody withdraws into their own into themselves, and they've got their own livelihoods to try and sort out. So I can understand that, but it was just didn't get any support from anybody. I have to say that I was disappointed with that.
And you felt no support from the club itself, or
no.
You mentioned Bobby Campbell, but even from above him, there was no. Right.
No.
Obviously, with Chelsea that got relegated, they're in the second division. You didn't feature at all. during that period, but you did
No.
end up leaving Chelsea in October of '88. You managed to go back to Ireland, to Derry City.
That's right.
£15,000.
Yeah.
So we discussed, I'm assuming, the factors that led to this decision. But when you got the call from Derry, or did Chelsea tell you that there was an offer from Derry? How did you find out that Derry was interested, and how quick did you sign and leave?
Yeah. The club came to me. I think it was Gwyn Williams who was involved in that at the time. Came to me and said Derry were interested, and Derry were playing in I don't know, was it a European Cup match or a Cup Winners' Cup match in Wales, in Swansea or Wrexham or somewhere. So I got to train from London over to meet them. They said they wanted to talk to you. So I went and met the board, the Derry board. Deal was done in 10 minutes. It was a no-brainer on their side. Yeah, it was a no-brainer. I was so desperate to get out. I'd have basically just gave myself away. I said, look there, I'm going home. I don't fucking care. Where do I sign? So I came back to London overjoyed and went in, I think, the following day, packed up my bag and just left.
And I bet your girlfriend at the time, but wife now, was she sort of pleased that you was able to sort of come home? And
she was. Yeah, of course she was.
She must have obviously known of your struggles.
Yeah,
Chelsea and in London.
Yeah,
and wanting you to be happy and to come home.
Yeah, and of course she was delighted. Yeah, but at least I was glad. I had I did have Angie to talk to during those very, very dark days. They were so dark. Like, I'd have hour-long conversations with her, like saying, what do I do? And she said, hang tough. You never know, things might change. And I knew they weren't going to change. But then when the Derry offer came in, it just sorted out so many problems. It just sorted out every problem that I had. So, look, I was going home. They're a decent club, great manager. Proper money eventually. So yeah, it was all good in the end.
And to put a bow on the time at Chelsea, when you did leave, did you get any feedback, or did you hear back from anybody from Chelsea that you was leaving?
No.
Did you hear nothing from them? Nobody
said a word. Oh, I think actually, I'm wrong. When I was going out with my bag, I had my bag over my shoulder. I was walking down before all the new buildings were there. It used to be a big long walkway out to the Kings, out to the Broadway.
That's right.
I was walking down, and of all people, Bobby Campbell comes past me, and he said, "Work hard."
Wow. Wow.
So I said, you probably know my response to that. It began with an F. And that was it. And I've never heard from Chelsea again.
Your last interaction, your last connections with them.
Work hard.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so inhuman. It's so unfeeling. It's horrible.
But it's safe to say, though, that from that point, from the late 80s, you went on, you had a very good career in Ireland. You managed to win some championships. You managed to put that to one side and concentrate on your own development and things. And you became a decent player out of it as well.
Yeah, I did ultimately. But again, it wasn't, it was through my own hard work. Like, I had a long way to come back to. From where I had been when I joined Chelsea. I was on top of the world, but playing well, winning league after league. We'd just won 4 in a row, league titles, and so it was a dip, all right, but it was a very lonely place. I feel sorry for anybody who has to be there. Really do. My heart goes out to them.
I'm very intrigued, John, by this. So in terms of, obviously, when you left Chelsea for the final time and you told Bobby Campbell where to go.
Yeah.
Basically. Psychologically, did it take you a while to get over?
Oh, absolutely, Keith. Months. Because there was no, like, if I had been known about counselling, I would have gone to counselling, because that's how bad I was. I really needed somebody to talk to. Now, again, Angie stepped into that role, thank God. But I was so low, it was ridiculous. Now the manager at Derry did a great job. Jim McLaughlin, a personal friend of mine at the time as well, fantastic job of building back up the confidence, getting me back to where I was. But it took me a few months to get going. Yeah.
But again,
like people look at football. People look at footballers, Keith. They see, oh, he plays for Chelsea. Everything must be wonderful. Like in their day, like the wages were shit. You know, it wasn't. Well, they were for me. I know for some players they were obviously getting more than others. So there was the financial rewards weren't absolutely huge. Like there was guys in the city, investment managers or wherever they are, getting absolute gazillions. But it was a tough place to be. But again, I wouldn't have changed it though. When the experience, when Holly was there and I was in the team and stuff, you know, nothing beats that feeling. It's just fabulous. Yeah.
And I suppose when you look back, even when you signed for Derry and then when you signed for the clubs after that, you took this point with Chelsea. Yes, it might have been a low point, but you learned from it, and it was a case of learning from your experiences, learning from mistakes, and
absolutely
what you've seen on the training ground, and
yes, I'm bringing all that experience. Yeah,
you know that would help you. Then when you became part of one of the elder guys in the changing rooms, you was able to help the youngsters with that.
Absolutely, in every regard. But not only, I felt as well, Keith, which was even more important, not even on a professional level, at the football level, on a personal level, is to make them not feel detached. As soon as they're in, you get their name, you try to include them, and try to include everybody as the same, not little detachments here, there, and everywhere. And that was one of the main lessons I learned as a senior pro, is that kids do look up to you, and they do look for advice, and they don't have anybody to talk to either. So that's a huge responsibility, I think, for senior players, especially in the professional game, where it's even worse if you get bombed out of the team. Like, it's just madness. But it did, and I brought all that experience to bear, but mostly on a personal basis, not so much on the football level. Little bits and pieces, of course, that you pick up and you learn, but certainly on a personal level with your interaction with youngsters.
Brilliant. Well, I want to talk about current events now, if I can, and one particular topic that riles everybody up, and some people hate it, some people are still for it, and that's VAR. What's your view on the technology of VAR? Are you a proponent of it? Are you happy with how it's been used by certain individuals, or do you feel that it just needs to be scrapped altogether and go back to how it was?
Yeah, the latter. Just scrap it. Get the linesman to put his flag up when he thinks he is. And if he doesn't put his flag up, he'll know about it because he'll get dogs abuse from the crowd. It's part of the reason we go, is to give dogs abuse to the linesman and the referee. It's part of the game. But VAR is just ruining the game. It's absolutely ruining. You have 5 minutes waiting for pictures or a decision that should be, you can see. What are you waiting for? Make a decision. Yeah, it's rubbish. I don't know where you sit on it. Where are you on it, Keith?
Goal line technology for
that's not fair.
All for that.
That's not fair.
When it comes to certain decisions, for me personally, I do think that there's come a point where it's all part of a drama. That it's not a sport anymore. It's for entertainment purposes, and they're using it as entertainment purposes.
Yeah,
and it's
is it like the suspense of waiting for the decision, that kind of thing, like a whodunit.
It's mess. For me, it's messing people about. I don't think the players enjoy it. The managers, I know, certainly don't enjoy it. And if I'm being brutally honest, you can see it even on lower league football. The fourth official on the touchline, you don't like it.
No.
Because whatever decision's going to be made, the manager's just going to be...
You give it to him,
giving him an earful anyway. So
for sure. So he's not going to win either way,
No, I mean, certain decisions, yes, it is good. Certain offside decisions, I think, have been deplorable. But unfortunately, I just think it's here to stay. I can't see it being scrapped. Or
I don't think it will be scrapped, but I think they have to do something whereby the decision has to be made within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Whatever decision they make, be it wrong, right, or inside or outside, whatever it is, just make it. But I would prefer to go back to, and what I'd love to see as well, that if a fella's in an offside position and he's running, that the linesman puts his flag up immediately. He doesn't have to wait 5 minutes for him to see if there's an involvement about the player. Oh, please. That does my head
phase
in.
of play, next
up.
phase.
Yeah, next phase. And the centre halves and centre forwards running around like idiots for 3 minutes for no particular reason. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a no from me.
That's a no from you. Right, got it. Speaking of shambles, I want to talk about the current Chelsea Football Club with you, John, if I can. Complete and utter disarray in regards to the fan base. Listen, I know people are going to be saying that Potter's the right guy, and I get it. There's going to be a lot of people that say that he shouldn't have got the job in the first place, which I'm in the camp of. But they're in a horrible position at the moment. Got some big games coming up. Where do you stand on Chelsea? I know you said you haven't sort of spoke to anybody through Chelsea at that point.
Yeah.
Have you been keeping an eye on their results? I mean, the results have been pretty shitty, to be honest, but have you been sort of keeping an eye on what's been going on with Potter and with the new ownership? Because this time last year, Roman was still in charge. You had Tuchel in charge at Chelsea and everything seemed to be steadily okay. Now, complete change.
Yeah. The only time I get to even talk about Chelsea is my older brother follows them. He has a huge interest in them. He loves them. But I totally detached myself from Chelsea when I left, pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't look for the results. I have no interest in what they're doing. I don't care about them. I know that's a bit harsh for you to hear, but that's just the way that, I think my feelings were so hurt that I just said, "Oh well, that's fine, that's fine." So I know I know Potter got the job. I do know that from my brother told me, and I'll just give you his. He thinks he should be kept. He'll think he will come good eventually, but it's just a matter of hanging tough with him, and he'll turn things around. But that's his opinion. So
that's his opinion.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that. So yes, he should be kept.
Fair enough.
I feel sorry for him, though. Do you not feel a bit sorry for him in the fact that he was probably he came from Brighton or somewhere, I think.
That's it.
Yeah. And it probably maybe could be a step, but that's been said of many, many managers who started badly and then went on to be hugely successful. So I think the knee-jerk reaction in England and the UK in general, as you go through a good few, you're not playing as well as you should be, you get knocked out of the Champions League. I know that's a huge issue, but you've got to give the man a chance. You can't just expect him to be genius after how long a season he's been there or whatever. So I would say give him a chance.
Social media hasn't helped.
Well, that's again, thank God I never had to deal with that in my playing days. It must be an absolute nightmare for anybody in the public eye. Must be an absolute nightmare. And then you get all the weirdos as well, giving it large. And that's the hurtful thing. They're just driving it. And they've nothing else to do apparently all day but bombard social media with their diatribes. So I feel a bit sorry for anybody involved in the public eye in this day, particularly footballers, because everybody has a different opinion as to what should happen, who should be picked, what way should we play, even tactically.
And it's the worst criticism that gets more noticed rather than
empty vessels make the most noise, unfortunately. Yeah, that's always been the way. But it's not as intrusive as it is in these days. Yeah, for sure.
Final question, John, from me today. We've obviously talked about your time at Chelsea. You've discussed your feelings on it. But just based on this interview, how do you look back on your time at Chelsea?
I look back with a lot of fondness. I made some good friends there, like Darren Wood, Kevin McAllister was a good pal of mine. Basically, well, those two lads mostly. Gordon Jury was again kind of a nemesis of mine, but in a very kind of a friendly way, if you know what I mean. So we bounced off each other for obvious reasons. It was, I look at it with a lot of fondness. I made some of the lads in the team were just fantastic people. They were lovely to be around, great to train, great professionals, just fantastic people generally. So yeah, with a lot of fondness. It's just the way things ended, and it was a long time. It was a 6-month dry into the end, and it just soured a lot of stuff. But now looking back, having detached myself and everything's over, and I don't have any involvement in football anymore. So, yeah, looking back, it's with fondness.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully enjoy your time watching Shamrock Rovers on a weekly basis. And may I say, just all the best to you.
Keith, thanks very much for having me. It's a delight to talk to you, and I do hope things improve for you as a Blues fan, for sure. It'd be brilliant.
Well, we are going to need it, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, you never. I tell you, stick with him. He'll be grand.